بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear student, our lecture today will be about the embryology of the urogenital system. The urogenital system. There are two systems, the urinary system and the genital system. They are closely associated in their development and anomalies. Both develop from a common mesodermal region, which is called the intermediate mesoderm. This is the intermediate mesoderm, and this intermediate mesoderm gives rise to the urinary system and the genital system. Initially, the excretory duct of both systems enters a common cavity, and this is called the cloaca. So they are grouped as the urogenital system. Today, our lecture will be about the embryology of the urinary system. The urinary system consists of kidneys, ureters, urinary bladder, and urethra. Learning objectives. Number 1. Understand the 3 stages of kidney development. Number 2. Describe the development of collecting system and the nephron. Number 3. Explain how the urinary bladder and urethra form from the cloaca. Number 4. Define the abnormalities of the urinary system. The kidneys of the fetus passes through 3 stages of development. The first one is called pronephros. The second is called mesonephros. The third is called metanephros. Now, all the 3 developed from the intermediate cell mass of the mesoderm, which is called nephrogenic cord. Now, the pronephros is rudimentary and non-functional, while the mesonephros may function for a short time during the early fetal period. The metanephros forms the permanent kidney. Now, these three stages appear one after the other in time and one caudal to the other in position. I mean by this, look here, this is the pronephros. When it will disappear, caudal to it, there will be appearance of mesonephros. When the mesonephros disappear, there will be appearance of the permanent kidney or the metanephros caudal to it. Now, the first portion, which is the pronephros, as we mentioned, it is rudimentary and non-functioning, appear in the cervical region. When this appears, the second one, which is called the mesonephros, appear. The mesonephros arise from the intermediate mesoderm from upper thoracic to the upper lumbar segment, and it has 2 structures and develops into 2 things. Number 1, we call it as mesonephric tubule, and the second one is called the mesonephric or Wolffian duct. Remember, mesonephros arise from the intermediate mesoderm from upper thoracic to the upper lumbar segment. Now, these mesonephric tubules, most of them function for a short period of time and later on they regress and disappear. But the mesonephric duct will continue and persist. Now, each mesonephric tubule, now look at this is the mesonephric tubule, will become an S-shaped. And this S-shaped have an expanded medial end and there is a narrow tubular lateral end. This expanded medial end will become invaginated by capillaries, and these capillaries, they are coming from the aorta, and these capillaries will form the glomerulus. The glomerulus with this warming capsule of the medial end of the mesonephric tubule will form these 2 structures will form the renal corpuscle. Laterally, this tubule, if you follow it laterally, this tubule will enter a longitudinal collecting duct, and this longitudinal collecting duct is known as mesonephric duct or Wolffian duct. This mesonephric duct or Wolffian duct will persist and it will enter into the cloaca. Now, in the male, a few of the caudal tubules and the mesonephric duct will persist and participate in the formation of the genital system, but in the female they will disappear. And next lecture we will speak about the derivative of the mesonephric duct in the formation of the male genital system. The mesonephrons begin to produce urine, and by the end of the second month, the majority of the tubules and the glomeruli disappears, and the mesonephrons now will be replaced by the third stage, which is called metanephros. The metanephros, or the definitive kidney. The third urinary organ, which is called the metanephros or permanent kidney, appear in the fifth week, في الأسبوع الخامس. Now it develops from two sources. The first source is called the ureteric bud, and the second source is called metanephric cap. Now look here, you can see this yellow structure is called the ureteric bud, while this black color structure is known as metanephric cap. These two will form the metanephric or metanephric system or metanephros, which will give rise later on to the permanent kidney. These two structures, the first one, which is called the ureteric bud, will be responsible about formation of the collecting tubule of the kidney, while the second, which is called the metanephric cap, will be responsible about formation of the whole nephros. The collecting system. The collecting duct of the permanent kidney develops from the ureteric bud. Now look here, this is the ureteric bud. As we mentioned previously, that the mesonephric duct, when it will enter inside the cloaca, mesonephric duct is part of the second stage that will persist. This mesonephric bud, as it enters to the cloaca, there will be appearance of an outgrowth of it, and this outgrowth is called the ureteric bud. This bud will penetrate the metanephric plastina or metanephric cup tissue. This metanephric cup tissue is coming from the intermediate mesoderm in the sacral region. So remember, the first stage, all the three stages is coming from the intermediate mesoderm, the mesonephros coming from the upper thoracic and to the upper lumbar region, and here it comes from the sacral region, the intermediate mesoderm. This ureteric bud with the metanephric plastina, both of them, they will give us the metanephros or the third stage. Now the ureteric bud will start to elongate, and it will form and dilate, and it will form the primitive renal pelvis, and after a period it will start to split into cranial and caudal portion, so it will give rise to the major calyces, and later on it will divide into another two buds, and it will form the minor calyces, then continue to divide, forming more collecting tubules and collecting duct. So the ureteric bud give rise to number 1 ureter, number 2 renal pelvis, number 3 major and minor calyces, number 4 about 1 to 3 million collecting tubules. So all these are derivative from the ureteric bud. Now the excretory system. The excretory system, each newly formed collecting tubule is covered at its distal end by a metanephric tissue cap. The cells of the tissue cap will form small vesicles, and these small vesicles, they are called the small vesicles, which in turn give rise to an S-shaped tubule. This is the S-shaped tubule, which is arising from the renal vesicle. This S-shaped tubule, the capillaries will start to grow at one end of it and differentiate into glomerulus. And when the glomerulus here is formed with the Bowman capsule here, there will be formations of the renal corpuscles. And this renal corpuscles with this S-shaped tubule will be the which is connected to the collecting tubules and collecting duct. This will be the formation now of the nephron. Now the distal end will form, now look here, you can see this is the proximal end, will form the Bowman capsule, and this will be the glomerulus, while the distal end will be in open connections with the collecting tubule and the collecting duct. Now these tubules together with the glomeruli will form the nephrons or the excretory unit. So the nephron will open into the collecting tubules and into collecting duct. Now, this S-shaped tubule, continuous lengthening of this S-shaped tubule will result in the formation of the proximal convolute tubule, loop of Henle, and distal convoluted tubule. So, the ureteric bud is responsible, just to revise it, is responsible about the formation of the ureter, renal pelvis, major calyces, minor calyces, and the collecting ducts, while the metanephric cap is responsible about formation of the proximal convolute tubule, loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule, the Bowman capsule. Now, position of the kidney. Initially, the kidney are located in the pelvic region. Later on, the kidney will be, you can see here, it is located in the pelvic region. Later on, it will shift upward. Shifting upward of the kidney, the ascent of the kidney, it is caused by the growth of the body in the lumbar and sacral region. Function of the kidney, you remember that we said that the pronephros is non-functioning and rudimentary. The metanephros function up to the second month. Later on, it will be replaced by the permanent kidney, which is the definitive, and this become functional near the 12th week. Urine is passed into the amniotic cavity, and the fluid is swallowed by the fetus, and where it is absorbed into the blood, and then to the placenta, and the placenta will function as the exchange system, transferring the waste product to the mother. Development of the bladder and urethra. During the 4th to the 7th week of development, the cloaca develops into the urogenital sinus anteriorly and the anal canal posteriorly by the urorectal septum. Now look here. This is the allantoids, and this is the cloaca, and this cloaca, there will be here appearance of this septum, which is called the urorectal septum. This urorectal septum will deepen and divide it into anterior portion, which is called the urogenital sinus, and posterior portion, which is called the anal canal. And later on, it will separate the urogenital sinus from the rectum and anal canal. Now, if you look to this small video, you can see the urorectal sinus septum, how separate the cloaca into urogenital sinus anteriorly. This is the urogenital sinus, and this is the anal canal and rectum posteriorly. Now, this urogenital sinus, if you look at it, you can see that it consists of 3 portions. This is the largest portion, which will form the urinary bladder. This is the narrow portion, will give the urethra, and this will be the 3rd portion, which is called the phallic portion. Now, look here, you can see here, this is the urogenital sinus. The largest and upper portion will give the bladder, and this its apex will be continuous with the allantoids. But when the lumen of allantoids will obliterated, there will be formation of a fibrous cord, which is called the urethus, and this connects the apex of the bladder with the umbilicus. In the adult, it is known as median umbilical ligament. Now, this is the first part, which is called the urinary bladder, or the vesical part of the urogenital sinus. Now, the second part here, the second part will be the pelvic part of the urogenital sinus, and this will give rise to the prostatic and membranous part of the urethra of the male. The third part will get flattened from side to side, and it's called the phallic part of the urogenital sinus. And this part, its development differs greatly between the 2 sexes, and we will speak about it in the next lecture. Now, during differentiation of the cloaca, the caudal portion of the mesonephric duct, this you can see, this is the blue color, it will be absorbed into the posterior wall of the urinary bladder. This is the posterior wall of the urinary bladder. This is the mesonephric duct, واللي لونه أصفر هو اليوريتريك bud. It will be absorbed into the posterior wall. So the ureteric bud, which will be later on will be changed to the future ureter, enter the bladder separately. As a result of ascent of the kidney to its location, the orifice of the ureters move cranially. You can see here the orifice of the ureter move cranially. Those of mesonephric duct, what will happen to them? They will come more close to move and close together to enter here. You can see here they come close together and they will enter the second portion of the urogenital sinus, which is the pelvic part, which is now become the prostatic urethra, and this mesonephric duct now become the ejaculatory duct. So you can see here in this small video, you can see that the mesonephric duct will come downwards, these two, and they form ejaculatory ducts and open into the prostatic urethra, while the ureteric orifice will be shifted cranially, and this area is called the tricone of the bladder, and this is derived from the mesonephric duct, and it is mesodermal in origin. Later on, this bladder will be lined by endoderm. Now, urethra, at the end of the third month, epithelium of the prostatic urethra, this the narrow portion that will give the it is the pelvic part of urogenital sinus. This will give rise to the prostatic urethra. There will be proliferation of the epithelium of the prostatic urethra, and this penetrates the surrounding mesenchyme, forming the prostatic gland in the male. In the female, the upper part of the urethra will give the urethral and paraurethral gland. Look here, this is the prostatic gland, and this is the pelvic part of urogenital sinus, which will give the prostatic urethra, and the prostatic urethra proliferation of epithelium with the underlying mesenchyme will give us the prostatic gland. Congenital abnormalities. The first congenital abnormality is called renal agenesis, and renal agenesis could be bilateral or unilateral. It means absence of the kidney, and this will be result from a development failure of the ureteric bud and the metanephric tissue. That is to say, the third stage of the renal development, which is the metanephrosis stage. Horseshoe kidney. This is due to the fusion of the two metanephric cups together at their lower pole in the median plane. During the ascent of both kidneys, they are pushed so close together, and the inferior pole become fused together. When the inferior pole fused together, the combined kidney is not able to ascend to its adult location, and this is because this ascent will be prevented by the root of the inferior mesenteric artery. You can see this, the inferior pole of both kidney, they are fused together, and this will be, it's very difficult to ascend upward to its normal position. Now, another abnormality, when the kidney will remain in the pelvic region, and it is called pelvic kidney, and the other kidney will be in its normal position. Congenital polycystic kidney. Congenital polycystic kidney, this is due to failure of the communication between the metanephric tubule with the collecting tubule, and when the excretory tubule develop and form functional glomeruli, the urine will accumulate in the convoluted tubule, and this will result in formation of causing them to dilate, and it will form cyst, and this cyst could be solitary or could be multiple cysts. Congenital polycystic kidney is an inherited condition. It could be autosomal recessive or autosomal dominant. Double ureter. Partial or complete duplication of the ureter, it will be result from early splitting of the ureteric bud. Ectopic urethral opening. In rare cases, one ureter opens into the bladder while the other will open into the urethra or vestibule or vagina. You can see here there is double ureter. Here you can see there is ectopic ureteric orifice. Remnant of allantoids. The first case, it is called urethral fistula, and this occurs when the lumen of the allantoid persists and urine will be drained from the umbilicus. The second is called urethral cyst. There is a small portion of the allantoid remain and persist, and this will form a cystic dilatation. Urethral sinus, in this case the distal part of the allantoid will persist and thus forming a sinus. This sinus connected to the bladder by fibrous cord. This is fibrous cord which connect this urethral sinus to the urinary bladder. Now we complete our lecture. We have taken the development of the kidney. Don't forget the 3 stages of the kidney development, which is the pronephros, mesonephros, and metanephros. All the 3, they are developed from the intermediate mesoderm. This is first point. Second, don't forget that the kidney development from 2 sources. The nephron will develop from the metanephric tissue, while the collecting tubule will develop from the ureteric body. Another point regarding the development of urinary bladder. The urinary bladder will develop from the upper portion of the urogenital sinus, while the urethra develop from the pelvic part of the urogenital sinus. And we will come to understand the lecture. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask. I will be happy to answer you and help you to study and learn more. Thank you and have a nice day.